Okay, everybody, we're live.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November regular meeting of the Weston Board of Education. My name is Lisa Wallach. I'm the superintendent of schools. And at the November meeting, it is the superintendent that begins the meeting because it is the first meeting after our election that was earlier this month. So if you could kindly join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And our first order of business, as I said, was the election of officers to the Board of Education. Dr. Pesco, would you like to comment a little bit on the historic perspective of this, please?
Yeah, just from a historical perspective, I think there are some questions from some new board members and also members of the public on how election of the board leadership happens. Now, typically, historically, the board chair is usually from the majority party of the board. The vice chair of the board is from the minority party, and the secretary is typically from the majority party. That's how it's been. It's not stated in policy, but that's pretty much a historical perspective of how it's been as far as I can remember. With respect to the reason that it's done that way is also to create a partnership between the chair and the vice chair, who are typically of different parties. And so the chair and the vice chair are typically involved in all of the communications that really happen with the superintendent outside of the board meeting. Okay. So any substantive communication or meetings with the chair or the administration usually happens with the chair and the vice chair together. In addition, the chair and the vice chair also work together to do committee assignments. It's the chair's call in terms of committee assignments, but typically what happens, it's done in partnership with the vice chair. So there is like I said, I just wanted to give a little bit of historical perspective because there was some questions about exactly how the process works. How do you pick chairs and vice chairs? Is there any rules about which party a chair or vice chair? Well, that's typically how it's done historically, but we pride ourselves in being pretty nonpartisan in terms of how we do our business anyway. And we actually have a history of all working in collaboration. So with that, let me just hand it back to Lisa.
Thank you, Tony. At this point, I am going to call for nominations for the chair of the Board of Education. We will be voting by roll call, and I would kindly ask Ms. Saketa, the board clerk, to call a roll call vote.
Okay. Roll call for this meeting. David Felton.
Well, we need nominations first, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Call for nominations for the chair of the Board of Education.
I make a motion to elect Tony Pesco as chair of the Board of Ed.
Can we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, nominations are closed. And now the roll call.
The roll call is Tony Pesco as chair, Melissa Walker, Taffy Miller,
No,
Bernadette Kingsley.
You have to get them to vote after each one, Jody.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't understand that.
It's okay.
That's okay.
Melissa Walker,
I vote in favor.
is there a second?
No,
Okay.
it's the
Each
vote
one of
now.
them. We're all
Okay.
voting. Go through each one of us.
Taffy Miller,
In favor, aye.
Bernadette Kingsley,
In favor?
Peter Gordon,
Favor.
Sharon Ferraro,
In favor.
David Felton,
In favor.
and that's it.
Okay. Dr. Pesco is now newly elected chair of the Board of Education. At this point, I will have him continue with the other two votes.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you. I want to thank everyone for their vote of confidence. It's been actually a pleasure serving as the board chair over the last year. I'm really looking forward to working with everyone during this term as well. And I also want to congratulate everyone for the results of the election. I guess the only one that wasn't running was Melissa, right? And particularly, I'd like to welcome new board member Peter Gordon as well. Welcome, Peter. At this point, can we have nominations for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Melissa Walker for vice chair.
Can I have a second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor? Let's do the roll call.
Anthony Pesco,
Uh,
Taffy Miller,
In favor.
in favor.
Bernadette Kingsley,
Favor.
Sharon Ferraro,
In favor.
David Felton,
In favor.
Peter Gordon.
Favor.
Great. All opposed? I guess there's no opposed. So the motion passes. Congratulations, Melissa. You've been an incredible partner during the last year, and I look forward to working together as well.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I look forward to continuing our work together with everyone.
Nominations for secretary. I'd actually like to nominate Bernadette Kingsley for secretary of the board.
I second.
Okay. Let's do a roll call.
Taffy Miller,
In favor.
Sharon Ferraro,
In favor.
David Felton,
In favor.
Melissa Walker,
In favor.
Anthony Pesco,
In favor? All
Gordon.
opposed? Is that a comment, Taffy?
No, it was a sneeze, sorry. Thank you.
Motion, no opposition, motion passes. Congratulations, Bernie. And, you're the one person on this board with incredible educational background here. That's is really something we really need. And every time we're with you in a meeting, we all learn a little bit more. So it's great having you on the leadership team. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. I look forward to supporting the board in any way I can this year. So thank you.
Great. So with that, let's move to the next item on the agenda, which are recognitions. Lisa?
Sorry, I was having difficulty unmuting myself. Thank you, Tony. So we have several new hires, 5 new hires this year. We have 3 resignations and 1 retirement. I will go through them and then I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda as recommended. For new hires, we have Amanda DiBernardo, who is a lunch recess monitor at WES, effective November 1st. Craig Moody is a Spanish teacher who will be joining us after Thanksgiving. He is replacing Melissa Valendra, who resigned. Nicole Prophet is a float nurse who began with us on November 1st, replacing Kristen Radar, who resigned. Her family actually moved to Europe. Barbara Ramanan, is a building substitute at WIS. And Jackie Troxel is a new hire. She is a paraprofessional effective at the beginning of November also. And she's replacing Ms. Vimini, who resigned earlier in the school year. We also have 3 resignations. Jody Hanna, who is our PPS secretary, effective on Friday. She took a position at another Connecticut school. Kristen Radar, who was the nurse and moved to Europe. And Melissa Valendra, who took another position closer to home in another Connecticut school district, the Spanish teacher. And finally, we do have an upcoming retirement. Hernando Campo, who is the custodian at the middle school for many years, 20 plus years. 17, sorry, it seems longer. 17 years with the Weston Public Schools. I worked with Hernando when I was principal of the school, and he will be retiring at the end of this year.
Great, thank you, Lisa. So as part of housekeeping, these are the superintendent's recommendations, and we have to actually accept them as a board. And so can I have a motion?
Motion to approve the items on the consent agenda as recommended.
Can I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Hi, Taffy.
Bernadette.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, David.
Peter, you're on mute.
Aye, Peter.
Okay, great. Aye, Tony. All opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Approval. Thank you, Lisa. Approval of minutes. This one, Peter, you don't, you abstain on this one. You weren't here last month, but can I have a motion to approve the October minutes?
Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the October 18, 2021 Board of Education meeting minutes.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any comments on the minutes? Any edits or corrections? No? Okay, all in favor?
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Taffy.
Hi, Bernadette.
Hi, David.
Okay. Aye, Tony. Okay, thanks, Sharon. Aye, Tony. All opposed? So we have 6 affirmative, 1 abstention. The minutes are approved. We have public comment this evening. So as everyone knows, this evening we went to a live public comment. I think Dan may have stated this up front, but whoever is in public comment, raise your hand. You'll be unmuted. You'll have up to 5 minutes to give your public comment. After your public comment is done, we suggest, we ask you to leave the meeting and also participate in the remainder of the meeting through our live stream. Let's have the first public comment.
The first person that's going to be a public comment is Michael Hopner. Would you please unmute yourself, state your name, and state your address?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfectly, thanks.
Yeah, great. Yeah, my name is Michael Chad Hepner, and my address is 25 White Birch Road.
Great, welcome, Michael.
That's right, thank you. So I'm actually not, I can come on video if you want, but I can also stay off, whatever's better for everyone.
Completely up to you.
Okay, all right. We'll see if the videos, yeah, why not? We'll do it. You tell me if you can see me okay. Can you see me okay?
Perfect. Hi.
Great, okay. All right, the thing I wanted to mention to folks that I'm quite excited about, and I think this is a good opportunity given the challenging year we've all come through, is a very promising new idea about how we can potentially help all of our kids have a bit more healthful physical and actually mental experience as well in the classroom. I've been emailing the school board a bit about this as well as the superintendent and assistant. My daughter, Olivia, is a first grader at Hurlbut, and her brother, my son, folks, her brother is 3.5. And what I'm interested in trying to find ways that we can get our kids to use their bodies in more healthful ways in terms of the chairs that they sit in. And there's been a lot of research about what the cost is on sitting, and anybody who's on this call whose neck is sore right now or whose back is sore right now because of how they use themselves all day long can probably relate to this. But the point is there's more and more research about how our kids' use actually affects how well they learn. Now, I'm not suggesting some sort of massive radical thing because I know there's lots of consideration that go into how classrooms are set up right now, in particular around, of course, like pandemic preparedness, things like that. I'm simply suggesting people consider perhaps can we find chairs that are a bit more healthful, even sort of trays that bring their sort of like reading materials up and things like that. I'm happy to share resources about why this is so important, but I just want to flag now early enough so the school board can begin to think about this. There's lots of different case studies from other countries in terms of, and also here as well, how people's use of their body actually dictates a lot of how they learn. In fact, I won't burden you all with me moving around the room, but if any of you over the last year have decided to be at standing workstations instead of sitting all day long, our kids are doing the exact same thing. So if we think about how I've been watching them all be remote for the last year and a half or so, a real opportunity to make the classroom an even healthier place for them is finding ways to find seated positions that are actually better for them. So I recognize that flexible seating with different pods, that's a bigger kind of intervention, but I'm just curious if the school board will begin to think about the actual equipment that we have our kids sit in all the time. And again, I won't do that now, but I'm happy to share resources. And even, as I've said, spearhead any kind of sort of fundraising or efforts it might take to try to procure this kind of equipment. And with that, I will leave my 3 to 5 minutes or whatever I've talked at this point.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. This is really helpful. In fact, the board usually doesn't comment on public comment, but I think this is one area that is probably safe for us to comment on, which is it's always, I mean, anything to help the health of, or the environment, the healthy environment that our students are learning in is something that I think the board and the administration is always willing to listen to and to consider. I think this is also one of those items that kind of falls into, while the board is actually very interested in that, it's one of those things that actually do fall into the realm of operations and how, and how we actually equip the students and the teacher and how we set up the learning environment. And this is the one thing that I would ask if the administrators are listening tonight, maybe, and Lisa, I don't know, this is maybe something that you might want to follow up with. This is something that I think is more, is a better conversation probably happens with the administration than with the board on this item, but I really thank you for bringing it to our attention, and thank you for spending the time tonight to actually teach us a little bit about something that maybe we weren't aware of, until you kind of mentioned it. But
Sure.
We always think about that as adults in terms of our, how we spend our day. But I don't think we've thought about that in terms of students and how our youngest learners spend their day in terms of their physical environment.
Yeah. Well, the time to do it is now, because if you watch any 5, 6, 7-year-olds stand, trust me, they stand better than you do right now. And that's partly because they haven't had to sit in a chair for their entire life. So it's a pretty interesting thing. And I also think something that people can really agree on and align on, especially if little things like dollars and cents can be figured out. So again, I know you have other items on the agenda, so I'll pause now. But thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that would be the end of the public comment for tonight. I do not have any other participants.
Okay.
What happens, just procedurally, so what happens if people try and connect after this time for public comment? Are they able to, or if the public comment is a set window of time during the meeting?
Unfortunately, we have to actually have it as a set window of time. And I think we should watch the, and I think Dan is on, and I think we should watch the queue. And so if we do see, for example, if we're starting, if like now, right, if someone pops in, we should let them do that. Or if we see a significant pileup on the queue, maybe we should think about maybe at the end, but I think we should kind of consider just this window of time And everyone should be aware that there's a window of time to do public comment. If we start letting everyone in at different points in the meeting, I think it's going to be really difficult to manage, right? But let's just see how it goes. I think if we just have, a big queue, 5 minutes from now or 10 minutes from now, we should know that, all right? And we'll this is kind of the first time we're doing it. Let's see how we do. If there's something we can do better if we need to modify this because some people are missing public comment because they're dialing in late or so forth, well, we'll figure out something at the next meeting. So let's just see how it goes. But in no way do I want to preclude people because maybe they're a few minutes late or so forth. But we'll figure it out as we go along. Before we go to new business, let's hear from our student reps. You're on.
Hi. I think we can share our screen. So let me just see. Oh, it says we can't.
You can now. You can now. You're good.
Thank you. Because we brought some photos.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah. Sorry, I just got to pull it up. Okay. There we go.
There you go. So as we sort of started to talk about, as we started to talk about last time, we had our first sort of major spirit week at the high school. We had a week full of dress ups. We had 2 night events. We ran a really, really successful tournament for spike ball. We had I don't know if you can see, but an outdoor game night, Jeopardy style. It was really cute with the lights. We had the football game. We had a lot of successful dress ups. You could see our teachers were really involved, which was really great. I know the students appreciated it. And it was definitely one of the biggest events that we've had in the past couple of years, and one of the biggest showings of spirit I've seen in my 4 years at the high school.
We had a lot of teachers and a lot of people coming up to us and just complimenting us and everyone in the student government for setting up the week, because it was really like one of the most spirited weeks I've ever seen at Weston High School throughout my experience, even before COVID, which was just really fun. It felt definitely more normal, and we tried to take advantage of outdoor events and stuff like that, like this in the courtyard, or like the spike ball tournament that we had outside. We had so many people. It was actually, I think we said like 29 people signed up last when we mentioned it last time. I think it actually turned out to be like near 60 something. So there was a lot of people there, and people had a lot of fun. People were telling us about how much fun it was, and it really brought up the spirit. And then we have some pictures from the homecoming game where we did floats, and some of the floats were really, really cool. And I remember when I was there, when I first saw the floats, when we pulled them around to the field, there was a bunch of little, probably around 9 or 10 years old, a bunch of kids watching the dragon, and they were like, "Wow, that's so cool!" And they were all like literally mesmerized. And it was just really amazing to see. And it brought a lot of attention, and it brought a lot of spirit. And there was, as you could see, there's a lot of people in the crowd. It felt really, really normal. And it was just really amazing to come back and do something normal in this way. So yeah.
This is so awesome, you guys. Sorry to interrupt, but this is so great. I mean, and honestly, in all my time at the board, I've never seen you guys show pictures and stuff. This is just great. And I can see you.
It was so fun.
Yeah, it was a great,
really fun.
it was also a really great way, I think, to excite the younger kids about what goes on at the high school, and bring that community together at something that's so exciting, the football game, homecoming. Our teachers, our faculty were really great support during this time, and our PTO actually helped with the funding for the floats, and this was their idea. Yeah. We credit all the float ideas to them. It was a really great way to sort of bring the community together. We have sort of plans to carry this out into the rest of the year. We got really great feedback from students, so we are continuing to have more spirit at the high school and sort of hope that trickles down. to younger kids as well. We have upcoming Spirit Weeks in the winter that are very community service based. Another great initiative that administration is helping us with is transitioning an X period that used to be sort of like a free period right before winter break, transitioning it into not just a free time where we get to hang out. There's different activities like baking and movies, but it's going to be service oriented this year, which is really great.
So like combining sort of the fun activities that we've been doing and also making it service orientated with the entire school. Which we think is a fantastic idea. And then also we have some other community service things going on. We're just starting a drive. We're just starting a drive in front of the school. So we've been doing this sort of point system. I think we might have mentioned last time, where we have juniors and freshmen versus seniors and sophomores in like this sort of point system. And there's like there's like awards throughout the year for being on top. And so we decided to make the food drive that we're doing with person to person have to do with that as well, so we can get a lot of participation. And then we also have one more very exciting thing that we got done over the past few weeks, and that was we made a constitutional amendment to the student government constitution. And we really just wanted to make sure that community service was solidified in the student government constitution as something that's really important to us, not just for this year, but for the coming years as well. So we made an amendment that put a 10-hour around, I think, it was a 10-hour requirement for student government members for community service. Just because we wanted to make sure, we know that student government has always been dedicated to community service, but we wanted to make sure that every member knows going in to student government what their responsibilities are. And we really wanted to make it an initiative going forward, not just this year. So just to make sure that community service is, one of our main goals, we made this amendment, which was great. It required a 2/3 vote of student government, and it passed. So it's great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, you mentioned service in several of the updates that you did, and it's really great that that's a theme that you're kind of that you're having every month, and that's a theme that you're trying to push and support this year, which is great to hear.
Great job, guys.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Thanks for the update, and you're welcome to stay or not. Just it's up to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks again. So let's move to new business. An appropriate topic today is infrastructure, right? And they say that all politics is local, and there's probably nothing more local than state of our infrastructure, and the work that we're doing not only as a board but as a town in terms of looking at all of our facilities with the view that we really need to spend the time to create a master plan that really drives our vision for our infrastructure and our facilities for the next generation. And so I asked our first select woman, Samantha Nestor, to come tonight to speak a little bit about her vision and the plans we have as a town to look at the infrastructure, the state of our infrastructure, and how we're looking to create a trajectory to basically solve all of our infrastructure needs. So thanks, Sam. And in light of the community conversation that's coming up on the 17th, I thought it would be really good for Sam to come in and say a few words to the school community as well.
Thank you.
All yours.
Thank you so much, Tony. First, I have to say, about 4 years ago, almost to the day, I sat in on my first Board of Ed meeting as a Board of Ed member. It was my first foray into public service, and I appreciate you guys letting me back in on a meeting. It took a long time, but thanks for letting me back in. And Lisa, I am thrilled to have you at the helm, and same with you, Tony. Everyone, I appreciate your patience. We have been starting this process actually 2 years ago, but given that it's Infrastructure Month, and today is Infrastructure Day. As Tony said, it's perfectly fitting for me to let all the folks who are watching and everyone on the board know that we take planning really, really seriously. And one of our main goals as a board and in our office is really about understanding what the community needs. And we started that process by creating something called the Facilities Optimization Committee a couple of years ago under my predecessor's administration to come up with a series of questions. After they came up with some questions, we came up with some questions as well. And right now, in 48 hours, we're going to have a meeting where the firm who is going to start giving us some answers is going to have a community conversation to talk about the conditions of 3 of the school buildings. Now, what I do want to say, like Tony said before, we are planning to look at another school where, with the Board of Ed, hopefully, and the town is planning to look at their facilities as well. We are taking a very close look at infrastructure. We want to assess what our needs are. We want to be able to have a thorough analysis so that we can have a roadmap for the next 10 years. So everyone who lives in town should have gotten a flyer that said STEAM, which, because I'm a marketing person, I like having handy dandy names for things. And what STEAM means is it means Strategic Town and Educational Assets Master Plan. So what this is on Wednesday is the beginning of that process. On Wednesday's meeting, you will be hearing from myself. You will be hearing from the chair of the Facilities Optimization Committee, and you will be hearing from the head of Tecton Architects, who is the lead of that firm, the consulting firm that we hired to assess what the facilities were, current state of the facilities, and what the current usage is. And some people have said to me, well, what's the difference between facilities optimization and STEAM? I want you to look at it as a pizza pie. Facilities optimization is many pieces of the pizza pie, but it's not the whole thing. But it's really important that we have that as a foundation, and it is a start. And who is part of STEAM? Everybody is part of the STEAM process. Obviously, the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Ed, the Board of Finance, but our stakeholders include Westonites. It's very important that we get feedback and that people attend the meeting on Wednesday. And the way that you can access that is by going to the Town of Weston homepage, and you can go to the meeting schedule, and the meeting for 7:30 tomorrow is right there.
Wednesday.
And then Wednesday. You can also get more information and preview the materials. If you go to the homepage, there's a button. The first button you see is called STEAM. So you can click on that. It's just important that everyone know that they are part of the process. And we are bringing people in on the beginning of this process so that we don't go down the road and end up with some ideas or solutions before anyone has had any input. One of the myth busters that I do want to put out there is that none of this is a fait accompli. The conversation is the beginning, that is tomorrow. Any discussion or decisions about school buildings, school usage have the final approval from the Board of Education and the people. So again, I want to say to those watching, this is the beginning of the process. Now, the Facilities Optimization Committee started a couple of years ago, and that is because they felt that they needed to do their due diligence, going through a lot of materials and coming up with important questions. But we don't believe that the length of time means that this job is finished. We think that this is the beginning of looking at the town and the school infrastructure and facilities holistically and doing it together and collaboratively with the public.
Mhm.
So that's all I got.
Great. Let me just open up. Any of the board members or administration have any questions for Sam before we move on? This is your opportunity.
I had one clarification question, which I think I just recently learned, is that even though the schools are managed by the Board of Ed, it is the town's responsibility to provide the facilities in which we educate our kids. Is that?
That's what we are responsible for, the capital budget, and the facilities are within the capital budget, but you approved your facilities budget. And we usually, that's why we're doing this 10-year plan together, because that 10-year plan is the entire facilities, which is the capital budget. When you vote on the town and school, there's a town budget line, there's a school budget line, and there's a capital budget line. And so that capital budget line is the combined budget. And that's why we're trying to involve everyone together to have this 10-year program, to see what we want to ask for grants for, what we need to put in a capital budget for, and what eventually you might need to go for bonding for.
For clarification, this is just having, this is just having to do with the schools. On Wednesday,
the meeting on Wednesday is the phase about the schools, correct?
Okay.
Yeah, it's the, when you look at all of our facilities, and you go back to the latest facilities conditions, study, that was 2017, that was Silva Petrocelli.
Tony, yours is 2017, the town's is 2008.
Yeah, so it's one thing that's highlighted is that the fact is that while we're looking at all the facilities, probably the more complex set of facilities are probably our school facilities, and that's why we're kind of starting there, but it doesn't end there,
And I should have clarified it, kind of those three schools, if you think of it as a pizza pie, they're kind of the crust. They're the bottom layer. We still have, all of the toppings and everything else to put on it, but really they're foundational.
Yeah.
Hi, Sam. I have a question for you. Thanks for this presentation so far, and I'm looking forward to Wednesday night's meeting. In your comments, you were speaking a lot about the community involvement and getting the community engaged in this process. How do you foresee that happening throughout this process as we get beyond this first initial meeting?
So the first initial meeting, there is public comment at the end. Everyone will be getting 3 minutes. It's set up a little bit like a workshop for the Board of Selectmen meetings when we do those webinars. So there will be pointed questions that are part of that presentation. I did have, I can't figure out how to share my screen, so there'll be enough of a presentation on Wednesday. But that feedback, we also have an info at westonct.gov where people can send written comments. We will be posting the presentation on the town website. We will also be doing 2 more community conversations as part of the process. And so the conversation on Wednesday is sort of a state of the facilities, sort of the state of the union. This is where we are right now. And then I'm going to say the end of January, but it's budget season. So I'm a politician a little bit, so I don't want to get held to that, but we are hoping that by the end of January, we can have conversations saying, these are some of the opportunities that the consultant found. These are some ideas that we have. And again, that will get feedback. That's a public conversation. One of the reasons, and then there's a third conversation that will be made that will be presenting, this is what are the recommendations. And again, feedback providing again for that, but consistently info@westonct.gov. There is always, when the Facilities Optimization Committee have their meetings, all of that is recorded. There are always minutes. There is a public record of that working group. I do like to say a difference between volunteers who are in a working group and the community conversation, which is a outward presentation that is meant to be some of that work solidified and refined so that people can understand it a bit better. And then as far as the other facilities, we're in the process of seeing how those are incorporated into those meetings. We want these meetings to not take forever, and we want them to be presented in an understandable way. It's very complex materials. So we do want to give people enough space to be able to sit with the materials and ask their questions. And those people who are experts can provide that feedback.
Kathy?
Sam, thank you for this. And I wondered if you could comment on the time horizon. So I appreciate the 10-year plan. I think the question probably on people's minds that will obviously come up tomorrow is, okay, so this is a 10-year plan. And 10 years feels like a lifetime for a lot of folks, especially people with kids in the high school, et cetera. But I was gonna say, are there milestones?
There are milestones. I am a person who does not like to give solid dates unless I feel like they are achievable.
Right.
One of the reasons why we chose Tecton to be the consultant for this project is because they believed quite firmly in public input through the process. So I don't know what the public perception of what these ideas will be. But there is a hope that by the spring, there will be a plan for the early components for this. There will be plans for the schools. But again, that is a very aggressive, in my opinion, but it is not unachievable.
Right.
But we don't, if COVID hadn't happened, this may have come up sooner. We are also have a large infrastructure bill that was just signed today. We have to see what comes down the pipe with that. But I will say,
I wasn't so much saying that 10 years is a bad idea as much as
it's not 10 years to accomplish something.
Yeah,
it's looking at urgent, important, and what's ongoing.
Right, exactly. I think it's a question more about how to keep people engaged in when it's a 10-year project, and if there are set milestones, eventually when you're ready to set those milestones, it just allows people to engage and work towards each of those as opposed to only one big, long horizon. Great.
So Kathy, right now we do our capital budgeting in 5-year increments. We have a 5-year look forward for the town. We look at things that way. What this does is it gives us solid numbers. I'm sorry if I was confusing. It's not saying that whatever solutions that are going to be generated as far as optimizing school and town facilities, that it's going to take 10 years. I don't mean that.
Right.
What I mean is there are facilities plans that are usually done every 10 years. And we're going to do that roadmap in partnership because it is one capital budget. And we have to coordinate with each other because it's the same pot. So I did not mean that it's going to take 10 years. I also, don't want to misrepresent our goal is that a recommendation is finalized by June, but that means it goes through all the public process. It goes through all the process with the Board of Ed, and it goes through the process for the people in the town. So I'm saying if all the stars aligned beautifully, that's what we could do. And that's what the goal for the consultant is to have the solution be provided by then. because that enables us to do some other grant opportunities and other items that are part of the process. But no, this isn't going to take 10 years. I think we've been waiting a long time for some action.
Samantha, I have one other quick question. I saw in the Tecton report about the potential costs to renovate some of the schools. I haven't seen since the meeting on Wednesday is mostly, it's Wednesday, right?
Yeah, okay, go on.
Okay. Is mostly, you're saying that the purpose of Wednesday's meeting is mostly to focus on the 4 schools or all facilities?
No, it's only Wednesdays only, and I'm curious as to do you mean Silver Petrocelli's cost to renovate the schools or Tecton costs?
Sorry, Silver Petrocelli.
Okay, because I was like, we don't have that. I was like, do you have something I don't have? How is that possible? They gave it to us for free. Oh no, just kidding. So you have that number. What? And that's from 2018.
17, yeah.
2017. The purpose of Wednesday is to really let the public understand this is the conditions of these 3 buildings. And this is how these 3 buildings are used. Also, it's an introduction to say, hey, we're starting this process. We've started this process of looking at town and school buildings. We want you to be involved in it. It's an overview of what the Facilities Optimization Committee has done to date. And it is the consultant saying, here is the state of the schools and how these buildings are utilized. Mm-hmm. And it's only what is current and present and what's happening now. I know that they have gone through those materials, but that is not the, people can ask those questions, but I believe it's premature to say, what is this going to cost? Because my hope is that those conversations with the educational community within the school, Weston Public Schools, are happening. Ultimately, whatever we do as a community within the schools has to deliver the same, if not better, high quality education and exceptionally high quality education that Weston is currently delivering. So in order to do that, there has to be those conversations that happen. My understanding is that those conversations are starting or happening, Lisa, right?
Yeah, well, I guess that was kind of the basis of my question. I wanted to make sure I was looking at the right paperwork in preparation for Wednesday. So it sounds like the Silver Petrocelli is a good report for me to kind of really dive in on, and for people who are going to.
I think, yeah, the Silver Petrocelli report kind of lays a baseline for the facilities conditions as was seen in 2017. Mm-hmm. And it basically goes building by building to look at current conditions and cost assessments for the things that needed to be upgraded, right? Out of the 2017 report, that's where we created the 10-year capital plan that addressed some of those items, but not all of those items, right? So now we got to step back and say, okay, we have the Silver Petrocelli report. We have Tecton, who's basically taking a look at all of the facilities ultimately, and coming up with some recommendations for what our town and educational space might look like, or for the next generation. Now, in order to do that, there's a couple of different components, right? One component is to look at the buildings, right, and to figure out what you need to bring those buildings to good repair, right? And then the second component is going to be, how do we actually optimize all of our facilities across school and town? And in order to do that, you have to take a couple of steps back and involve the administration and the Board of Ed when it comes to possible configurations for our educational space, to make sure that whatever options that our consulting comes up with are really appropriate for the delivery of education consistent with our vision as an administration and as a board. So we're at the point now where Tecton is going to start looking at various options to recommend. And that's kind of where the rubber hits the road, where the administration and the Board of Ed needs to start getting involved, because once these recommendations become ones that are public recommendations, right, through our community conversations, they really have needed to be vetted beforehand. So it isn't that Tecton's going to throw out recommendations that ultimately are not going to work for us. So this is the point where we have to really work hand in hand to make sure whatever proposals and recommendation that Tecton thinks might be appropriate are appropriate for us from an educational perspective.
So
And
that
again,
answered.
and again,
that answered one
Wednesday is.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Sharon. Sorry.
That answered one of the questions that I had, which was, are there going to be recommendations made at this meeting on Wednesday? But it sounds like that's premature. It's just going to be basically
very premature.
Yeah, sharing the information that's been found. For those people who are watching on YouTube, Sam, is there any place where people can go and read this report prior to the meeting on Wednesday, so they're familiar with it and they'll have some good questions?
They can. We are planning to post the presentation on the STEAM page. And I believe there are finishing touches being put on the presentation. A PDF link will be on there right now. If you go to the homepage for the Town of Weston website, there's a STEAM button. It takes you straight to that STEAM page. There is a link to the meeting where the Zoom information is. It also is a link to the invitation, which has an overview of the goals and what to expect at the meeting. And then tomorrow we should have, if the technical fairies are going our way, that should be posted. It's a very large file, but we should be able to post the PDF tomorrow.
And again, it's Wednesday, not tomorrow, right? The meeting?
We're posting tomorrow. The meeting is on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think Sharon, you're basically asked my question a lot more eloquently, which is, what should I be reading and what should the other members of the public be reading, and where should we find it in preparation for Wednesday, right? So we can show up on Wednesday with as much information as possible so that we can ask questions that have been looked at. So the website,
And you can also watch the videos. Every 2 weeks, there is a facilities optimization meeting. You can watch the videos of the meeting, but again, I will say it's a working meeting. So it's a little bit like your committee meetings where there is work that is going on and it's not necessarily the end product. So to be able to ask questions about what the end product that you're going to look at on Wednesday, you can check the website tomorrow, or if you're really antsy, you can look at the different meetings that are recorded on the town website.
So just for the board members, you're going to see this topic pop up in our facilities meeting now on a more regular basis. Any other questions for Sam? Great. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you
for
so much. I
coming this
appreciate
evening.
you indulging me. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll see you on Wednesday. Goodbye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, great. So let's actually move to the, is there any other questions on this? I think we have to basically go through the process. I think we start with Wednesday. I think that, this is going to be a long process. I mean, before you get to the point where you have really viable options that work for the town, the school, when you really look at all the constituents that basically need to be on board, this is something that to do it right is going to take a bit of time. But this is really exciting because we have to do it. We can't wait any longer for a plan to upgrade our school facilities. I mean, yes, we need to do school in town, but we really need to do some of our school facilities. And this is the perfect opportunity to get this work done. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but we have to basically start down this road. So let's go to the next topic. Julie, class of 2021 post-secondary outcomes?
Yes, we have the class of 2021 post-secondary outcomes report, and I would like to turn this over actually to the Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Craw, as well as Ms. Starzyk and Ms. Gavoni, who will
Great.
take us through it. You may remember that we split the report into two. I'll let Ken explain a little bit about that. Ken?
And this report tonight follows up on the report that we presented in October on the K-12 standardized testing results. And just so that we have enough time for discussion, we split these two reports into the two successive months. So we're very pleased that our Director of School Counseling, Meredith Starzyk, and our interim principal at the high school, Julie Gavoni, are here to present on the post-secondary outcomes for the class of 2021. And, you know, I really can just say at the outset that we have some very strong outcomes to report on tonight. The class did very well. And as you know, most of our students generally go off to four-year colleges, but there are, you know, other things that students also look at as they're leaving Weston High School. And we want to highlight some of those tonight. We want to highlight some of the statistics, but I think, you know, really, you'll hear a lot about the process tonight from Meredith, the process that our students and families go through, the support they receive from our counseling department that we have strengthened over the years. As you know, we added our college career counselor in recent years. That's been in place now. You'll hear about summer programs. You'll hear about all the kinds of things that we do to keep parents and students informed. And certainly, you know, we welcome your questions tonight, and we think this is an informative report for both you and the community. So with that, I'll turn it over to Meredith.
Sure.
And
great. Thanks.
Let's see, Meredith, are you're gonna share your screen?
Oh, I do not have the report up. I wasn't sure I was going to do. I'm not going to go slide by slide. I'm just going to reference it.
Okay. Right.
Can someone throw it up on the screen?
Yes. As Meredith gets started, I will look for it. Unless Dan, you have it there. I'll pull it up and see if we can get it up on the screen.
Thank you.
Yeah, it would be good to have it up on the screen if you get it up there.
No problem. Dan, am I able to share screen?
Yes, you're able to.
Okay, Meredith. Okay. I'll just adjust the view, but you can go ahead.
Okay, so this report not only provides information regarding the outcomes of the class of 2021, but it also describes the journey this class took throughout their time at Weston High School. So I'm just going to reference a couple of the slides in the report that I know you guys have a copy of. But on slides 4 and 5, it references some of the programming that was provided for the class of 2021 freshman and sophomore year. This included an orientation to the high school and then essential questions that we like each grade to think about every year. So for example, for freshman year, what now? Now you're at the high school. So that's our question for the 9th graders. Then sophomore year, who am I? We want them to start thinking a little bit more about who they are as a student, as a person, taking some personality profile assessments as well. Slide 6 provides an overview of what junior year looked like for the class of 2021. In November of 2019, this class attended a post-secondary planning college kickoff program in person. Families received information on various topics ranging from standardized testing to college visits and the application process. This is a typical program that's provided to all juniors to begin the post-secondary process every year. Two things that were unique to the class of 2021 to begin their journey in the spring was in the SAT school day was canceled due to COVID, as well as all other SATs and ACTs were canceled for the spring. So that was something that was unique for this class that they had to experience. Although COVID did change some things in regards to standardized testing, we are happy to report the counseling office was still able to provide our programming virtually to students and parents. So you can see in some of the other next slides, in May, juniors attended a virtual seminar on the application process. The presentation was recorded and we provided it to all students for future reference. Camp College, which is a program that we do in the summer prior to the start of the senior year, was also held virtually for the class of 2021. We actually were very impressed with the turnout. We had 101 students in the class of 2021 participate in Camp College. I think because we were virtual, it allowed more access to our students. And this is a very successful program because it really helps our seniors get a head start on the process prior to the beginning of the school year. They hear from admissions representatives, they get help on their essays, their applications, and they also get individual appointments with their counselors. For the class of 2021 also, college visits at the Weston High School were held virtually since admission representatives were not traveling. So for that fall of 2020, we had over 239 virtual visits scheduled, which we know actually was a really high number for us. We were very proud of because of the fact that it was done this method. It allowed for our students to access a lot of other admissions counselors who sometimes didn't always travel, but they were able to do these Zoom sessions, so that really helped our students as well. We also did senior parent programs and held them virtually. The rest of the report references specific outcomes and application statistics for the class of 2021. Application statistics that are on slide 13 remain the same as it has been in the past in regards to average applications, acceptances, and so on. So we did not see any fluctuations there. We did see an increase in some of our students being undecided about their plans. That was a little bit of a higher number for us than previous years at the end of last year. But to us, this makes sense in our department, given the situation of COVID, online learning, family situations, etc. I don't think that some students were taking some more time to figure out what they want to do as their next step. A takeaway that I found most interesting in this report comes from the slide referencing restricted programs. So for those of you who are not aware of the terminology, early decision refers to a binding program where students agree to commit to a school if they are accepted. And if you look at the slide, you will see that we had 91 applications for a restrictive early decision program. That's including early decision 1 and early decision 2. And why we find this very interesting is that this is a number that's a lot higher than it has been for us. And to see this increase in a year where students were not able to necessarily even step foot on a campus physically, it was interesting to see that so many students were willing to commit to a school without having that physical visit. So that was one thing I thought was interesting. It was a little different. The total number of students applying to both non-restrictive and restrictive programs remains high. Close to 86% of the class of 2021 applied to at least one school by November 15th. So if you think about all those materials and all those applications, everything is usually out for, I would say, about over 86% of the class. And
Can I
lastly,
ask a quick question?
Sure.
Sorry. With the early decision slide that was previously on the screen, are you finding, I mean, are you talking to other guidance counselors or other guidance departments for other school systems to find out if they're experiencing the same thing? Because one thing that I have kind of noticed is that the whole early decision card is being played a lot stronger from the schools. Is that something that you have seen as well, or is that not, am I kind of experiencing something in a vacuum?
Yeah, I don't think it's unique to Weston. By hearing from other schools, I think that we experienced a lack of control, I think, when we were going through COVID in some form or fashion. And I think that committing to a college and telling them they were coming, and a college also knowing that this student is coming, they're telling us that, I think that led to the increase of numbers, but it was not unique to Weston.
Anecdotally, given the way in which colleges made decisions, do you think that a lot of these applicants that applied to restricted programs would probably not, if it was a normal year, given the criteria for acceptance may have been a little bit different, and some of these students went for schools that were a bit more stretched for them, with the view that, if they got in, they were going, right?
I think there was definitely a little of that. And also to keep in mind, this was also the class that dealt with the majority of the schools saying they were test optional.
Right.
So where standardized testing played a factor in previous years in that formula, it didn't for this class as much.
Yeah.
And we're still seeing that this year for the class of 2022, correct?
We are. Some of the colleges have gone back to requiring the scores. That's usually your larger institutions. The bigger state public schools require the standardized testing, where some of the private ones are saying, no, we're fine being test optional. It worked for us before and we're going to continue.
Okay.
And so lastly, I just want to touch upon the part of the report that references acceptances based on selectivity. Weston High School students continue to receive acceptances to schools that are considered most and highly competitive. And these percentages are most impressive when you take into consideration that the average acceptance rate at some of these schools is 10% or less nationally. And when you see Weston High School students' acceptance rates, I think that's really, something to be proud of. And I'm happy to report that, the Weston High School class of 2021 had many successful outcomes despite COVID and some of the changes that could have made this process more challenging. And I think this is, their success is a true testament to all the hardworking staff members in Weston from kindergarten on. So I think we should be really proud of the class that just graduated. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question. I love that each year you've got those guiding questions starting at freshman year to get the students starting to think about the process. But do we have systems in place to deal with some of the anxiety that builds with starting this thinking, freshman year, and also after acceptance and start coming in, the anxiety of not getting where you were hoping to go or seeing other people get into those places?
There is, and I think that that's something that we really look closely at. When you look at what we do for freshmen, we really don't talk about post-secondary planning. You're at the high school, you're a high school student, how you transition to the high school. And even sophomore year, we start to talk a little bit about it in the frame of who are you, and maybe talking about best fit for after. So they do some career inventories and things of that nature. So we are very sensitive to make sure that we're not talking about this from the get-go. And also, so it's like that balance, right? Because we also have some people that say, well, we need to know what we need to know now. We don't know ahead of time. So it's finding that delicate balance between it. But we also are taking into account the social emotional concerns of students and making sure that we're programming around that as well. We actually, as a department, have gone into all of the freshman English classes and sophomore health classes to kind of talk about resiliency and to talk about self-advocacy and resources in the building and how to access us and other people and so on. So we're doing those programs as well.
Meredith, if I could jump in and ask you to speak specifically about for some of our newer board members, the college and career counselor and how she interfaces with both the families as well as the school counselors. I think it might be helpful.
Sure, absolutely. So this is our 4th year having Randy Green, who is a college and career counselor, on board with us. And she will work with juniors and seniors mostly. She starts working with juniors in December. We actually are having our post-secondary planning kickoff on December 2nd this year. And from that time on, she's available for individual appointments with students and parents to talk about that post-secondary planning piece. And she's just been a very valuable asset to us in her knowledge and just be able to, the availability to detail that she can take, when it comes to the applications. I mean, she walks these kids through their Common App. She walks them through websites. She's a wealth of information when it comes to certain programs at certain schools. So, and that's an added resource. That's not something taken away from the counselor's role. Sometimes we do those meetings together with her, or sometimes students and families will have separate meetings. But she's been a valuable, very valuable asset to us. I want to say her percentage when it comes to the amount of students she meets per class is over 90%.
Great. Meredith, maybe you talk a little bit about how do you weave in the whole portrait of a graduate into how we present, our students to colleges. I mean, we talk a lot about, and Lisa's talked a lot about portrait of a graduate, and how does that language and terminology and approach kind of get weaved into the whole college process?
Mm-hmm. I think one way that we can do that is within our school profile. The school profile is a document that, if people are not aware, that is sent to all colleges on behalf of Weston High School. It goes along with the applications. So it talks about things about our GPA weighting scale, courses that we offer. It has standardized testing, averages on there as well. But it also talks about our graduation requirements. It talks about Weston as a community, just in case an admissions representative is not familiar with Weston. So I think the school profile could be a nice area where we could put, some information about portrait of a graduate and the requirements of it and our mission behind it. I think that'd be one great area for that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Meredith,
will,
are the kids? Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, are the individual portraits that we're endeavoring to have these kids, craft? How do we communicate those beyond the generic school profile?
I was just going to add, one of the things that we've been talking about, as we continue to plan for the portrait of the graduate, and we're going to be actually rolling it out to freshmen in the very near future, is a component of that process that really teaches students how to be reflective of their own experiences and practices, both in the way that they talk about what they've done and then the way that they write about it. And so going through this process over the course of 4 years, they will have had plenty of opportunities to think about what they've done and what they've learned and what has been impactful for them and where their strengths lie and where they need to continue to improve. And so I think that process of engaging in reflection, of writing about themselves as learners, of understanding a journey, will really set them up well for this process of writing a personal narrative, for example, right? Or preparing for an interview with a college. I could see those things being really close connections to this individual work of the portrait of the graduate. And I think it's something that we're going to want to talk with our current seniors about. What are you doing as part of the process that could have been helpful to you in terms of preparing, knowing that this thing is happening and it's coming down the pike for our upcoming, our current juniors, I should say. What can we do as part of that process that would be helpful and possibly even take something off of the plate of a student who is preparing to apply to colleges or for some other alternative post-secondary opportunity, scholarship, an internship, something like that. So I think immediately of that reflection piece, but we're still learning as part of this process too.
Sure.
So
Thank you. Thank you both.
I was just wondering, what kind of supports do we have in place to navigate the financial piece with the college process?
So what we've been doing for the last couple of years is we've been partnering with Barnum Financial, who comes and does a free workshop for students and parents. And we open up from grades, 9 through 12. And they go through the nuts and bolts of it, which I think is great because there's a lot of things, the terminology that they use and the certain accounts you can use and the forms and so on. So every fall we've been having Barnum Financial present to our community on the financial aid process. However, that also being said, Randy Green is also great with filling out the FAFSA and the CSS profile and all those websites. So we have her as a resource as well.
Any other questions from the board members?
And on the agenda, it also mentions the AP scores by course. Are you getting ready to cover that, or is that part of the presentation that I didn't see anything?
Yes, thank you, Sharon. We do have the AP scores by course. We did share some statistics on AP results last time around, but we also wanted to share by course and the distribution of scores. So that is available in the packet. It will not show very well sharing screen here, but that is in the report. And I'd ask Meredith to just give some brief highlights. Obviously students last year had the opportunity to receive refunds on their AP tests if they desire to not take the test for whatever reason. That impacted some of the numbers in terms of how many students sat for particular tests. And but Meredith, you want to just kind of give a few highlights? I had spoke briefly to this in curriculum committee, but I think with you here, you can probably give even more depth in terms of these results.
Sure. So just to kind of put this in some kind of context, if people are not aware, there were 3 separate administrations of AP exams last May. And Weston chose to give some students flexibility and choice and also more time. So our students took these exams over 3 separate administrations. College Board is only reporting averages, however, on students who sat for that first administration. So it's kind of hard to always really compare our kids sometimes to the national and state averages. Just kind of keeping that in context. It's, that's something that, that they had released. They only did averages based on that first administration. So kind of keeping that in mind. But some of the takeaways, I think our students did do really well. I think, I don't have the numbers in front of me. However, if you look at the amount of students that we have in higher level math, for example, like the AP Calculus AB and then the BC, I think it's over 70 students that we have taking those AP exams. And when you look at that average, I think that that's, pretty impressive as well. I think some of the other takeaways, AP Human Geography, a brand new course and first year, and looking at that average being, very impressive as well. So I think those were some of the bigger takeaways.
And can we get those? Can we get those scores? I mean, we usually every year have a table with.
It should. Tony, it should be posted as part of the on the.
I got it now. Sorry.
Okay.
I only opened the first one. Perfect. Got it.
One thing, Meredith, that I think, and I always used to speak to this, so sorry I'm chiming in, is that when you look at the number of 4s and 5s, our students, 3 is passing. But for us, we look for the 4s and 5s, and to have, 435 4s and 5s compared to 233 3 2s and 1s, that speaks volumes as far as the program. And I agree, Human Geography is a brand new course. We encourage students to take that course. We encourage students that perhaps are not traditional AP students to take psychology. To have 64 students sit for the psychology and get an average score of a 3.78. When you look at the other averages, it really is a sense of, I think, pride and accomplishment. Same thing with computer science. That's a program we've been developing. We've really been trying to develop with Susan Weens, our computer science teacher. And these are really very impressive results.
They are actually, yeah, that's what I was actually looking for. Not to focus, I mean, honestly, these are great results, but how does this inform you in terms of, let's say in a particular course, you have more 1s and 2s than you really would like, right? Does that kind of inform you as to, is that just an anomaly, or is there a feedback loop to say, well, maybe we need to cover things differently or more or whatever? What's the process by looking at those things that appear to be somewhat anomalies in terms of, taking course correction and things like that?
Tony, I think there is a general answer to this question, and I'll give it, but then there's a caveat for this particular year. So typically when the scores are received by the teachers of the AP courses, they receive what's called an instructional planning report, which breaks down by the test, different sections of the test, different types of questions, and how individual students performed on those individual questions and types of questions. And that is very helpful as a teacher in terms of planning and preparing for the next go round and making sure that you are getting down into what are the things that are most needed by the students to be successful on the test. This particular year, it's a little bit different because, as Meredith said, with the multiple administrations, we're only receiving information related to that first administration. So a teacher's instructional planning report will only have information related to the students that took that particular test. So it's maybe not as informative for this year as it has been in the past, but still it gives you a direct link to student performance on very detailed level for each test. So that, I think, is probably one of the most useful tools for a teacher who's planning for the next course.
Great, thank you.
I have a question, Julie. The AP tests, there's a fee for each one, correct?
Yes.
Do we offer financial assistance to anybody that is in an AP class and maybe can't afford to take the test, or there's so many tests that they want to take and they're limited?
That's a great question.
Yes, and Meredith can speak more about that specifically.
Yes, we do. So we do have families that we work with for financial assistance. It's usually based on the free and reduced lunch. So families that qualify for that is generally the guideline. And we will usually cover a certain percentage of the total fee. And that's usually worked out between the family and the principal.
And do we reach out proactively, or are we waiting for the student to reach out to us?
It actually was in the email that was sent out for the AP registration.
Okay, fantastic.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just a quick question. What kind of criteria do you have for students who want to take an AP course? Is it open? If you really show interest, you can definitely take it, or are there barriers to entry in some of the APs if we have limited seats? How accessible are they to everyone?
So our course scheduling process begins with department recommendations. So students who are in a particular course will receive a recommendation for the upcoming year within that department. So recommendations are, based on current performance. They're also based on the program of studies and the pathways. So has a student completed the appropriate prerequisites for a particular course? Often with AP courses, because so many of these courses are elective in nature, teachers will have individual conversations with students. A student might say, I'm interested in this particular AP course. And then there might be a back and forth conversation that leads to a recommendation. We also have a course placement request process, a waiver process, if you will, for students who have not been recommended for a particular course, AP or otherwise, who are interested in taking that course. And there's a review process that's associated with that. that includes a variety of people who take a look at, again, current performance and readiness and reasons why a student might be interested in taking that course. So I would say that it is not completely open access. We do want to make sure students have the ability to succeed in a course, but we do want students to be able to appropriately challenge themselves. And as Lisa said, you know, we do want to see all students who want the opportunity to take an AP course before they leave Weston High School. So I think that's why you see large numbers in certain courses. AP Psych tends to be a course that a lot of students really are interested in and want to take. So many seniors who have never taken an AP course before will elect to take that course. And I think you can see from the results that they generally find a great deal of success. So yes, we absolutely want to engage in conversation with students and their families around accessing AP courses if students and their families feel like that is an appropriate level of challenge for them.
What percentage of our students take AP courses?
Wow, I don't know that I know the answer to that off the top of my head, but it's a lot. It's a lot. We can get back to you with the.
Yeah, I can tell you, I'm just doing the ordering for this May. And so I can tell you to date, we have 305 students registered to take at least one AP in the May.
Yeah,
305 across both classes, correct? Junior, senior, or do you have any sophomores taking APs as well?
We'll have a couple of sophomores because of the computer science.
Okay.
Yeah, usually.
How many students did you say?
So we have currently 305 unique students registered for APs in May. And that's at least one exam. I can't tell you, they're taking multiple because the actual total is over 800 right now.
Yeah. It's over 75%, right? I mean,
yeah, it's very high. The number of
yeah.
unique students is very high.
Yeah. Yeah, because, we have, figure roughly speaking, 180 students in the junior and senior class. So it's like 360 total, junior, senior, a couple of sophomores. And so it's 300 out of that group. That's a pretty high percentage, right? Great. Any other questions?
We have a lot of students who take advantage of the waiver process. I'm just wondering about the student who didn't get recommended by the teacher. And I understand that that's so important, but it's such a human touch too. If you don't get recommended by your teacher, do students who fit into that category have the confidence to start the waiver process? Or could we be more encouraging to have students take advantage of the waiver process to give themselves a second line of consideration? Do we want more students to take AP, or do you think we're accurately capturing the population that should take it and we're in a comfortable place with that?
Go ahead.
Sure. All great questions. We do have many students who take advantage of the waiver process. And I think that begins with the individual conversations they have with their counselors. So after students make their initial course selections, which happens typically in January, they do that at home with their families. Then students have an individual meeting with their school counselor. And at that point, their school counselor will review their selections and they can see all of the recommendations. And that's really the place where things start. Hey, I'm interested in taking this course, or hey, have you thought about kinds of conversations? And often that's the place where the actual form is distributed. Last year, of course, a little bit of a different process because of COVID. It was definitely more electronic and Zoom oriented in nature, but definitely still a strong showing in terms of the number of students who requested a course that they had not been recommended for. And often I'll say that they're not necessarily just AP courses. We're talking about opening up access for courses to students who are underclassmen as well.
If I can add, Bernie, probably about, I would say at least 8 years ago, we had looked very carefully at AP and there was a lot more gatekeeping going on then. And we have deliberately and planfully set a course, a trajectory to loosen, not have open enrollment, but definitely loosen up some of the requirements and do what we really pride ourselves in as a district is that personalization and looking at each child, and between the counselor, the teacher, the curricular instructional leader, finding a way for a student to be able to pursue that pathway. The other thing is in the offerings. At a cursory glance, there are about 7 APs that we put in within that 10-year period to provide these opportunities for students to be able to make those choices. So I do think that we are in an appropriate place for that.
Yeah, at least I just add to your point that in 2016, 59% of students took at least one AP exam, but in 2017 and on, we were over 70%. So it was, that lead up to that 2016 to 17 period, and then the addition of those additional courses. So we're well over 70% now.
Have we ever considered requiring at least one AP exam? Or at least one AP class? The reason I bring it up is I think that there have been some interesting studies about students who wouldn't typically take an AP exam or AP test or class who do, and their performance on. Let me get some more information. Maybe we can have a conversation later on. But
sure, yeah, and I'll say we absolutely want students to challenge themselves, right? We want them to be curious and inquire and find some intrinsic motivation in their studies. AP may not be the only avenue for doing that, and may not be the best avenue for some students for doing that, because in the end, there is an exam that you're working toward, and it is, particularly test preparation oriented. Yes, our teachers do a wonderful job of enriching the course in the ways that they can, but we have a lot of other offerings at an honors level and at a standard level that allow students to challenge themselves in ways that are not connected with an exam or potential credit at the college level. And so, yes, I'm open to continuing that conversation, but I don't know that AP is necessarily the avenue to get there.
Okay. And then just out of curiosity, one last question. Are seniors required to take AP exams?
We do not have a requirement that students take AP exams.
After completing the class, yeah.
Yeah, they are not required to do that. We do encourage them to do so. We have had a high rate of completion of the exam last year, again, being an exception for that because of the refunds that were offered through the College Board.
Right.
So
it's also very challenging to require something and not fully fund it. So that's why we have hesitated to do that.
Okay, that's fair.
Any other questions? Well, this is great. Thank you. This is a snapshot, but it's always, every year it's incredible to see how well our students, do at the end of their journey through the Weston school system. This is kind of the last snapshot we have of a student, and it's a culmination of 12, 13 years in our school system. And it's always incredible to see how well our students do after leaving here. So thank you. Thank you, Meredith. Thank you, Julie. Thanks for all this work that you do.
Thank you.
Lisa, where do we go next?
We go to Phil Cross and Finance.
Yes.
Mr. Cross, can you please give us the update for the October 2021 financial report?
Phil, we're getting to you about 2 hours earlier than usual.
Yeah, I know. That's a good sign. I'm happy about that. Everyone is nice and fresh. Just real quick, for the month ended October 31st, there were no significant changes. We continue to hold to our end of year projection of last month of a negative 51,564. Just repeat, this is not where we think we may not necessarily end at this number, but we're just trying to highlight a few unbudgeted items that we have. In terms of expenditures for the year to date, We're currently at 14,091,124. And we have encumbrances of approximately $37 million. So again, there's really no significant month-over-month change, really no changes month-to-month. And we have no current items that we're trending to be reported for October. In terms of the Internal Services Fund for dental claims, we are pretty much trending as we expected. So we're pretty much on target for a full spend of $421,680. So our claims to date is $126,169. And this is a very brief update, unless anyone has any questions.
Yeah, this is pretty much nothing's really changed much from last month. Are there any, are there kind of any known unknowns here coming up? Anything that you're concerned about in terms of surprises down the road? Well, it's a surprise.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit. I mean, things have been fairly quiet, Tony.
Yeah.
So for right now, there's nothing significant really on the horizon. As usual, that once we think of something or something comes up, we'll definitely bring it to the facility. I'm sorry, to the committee, and ultimately to the full board. So as of right now, things are in a good place.
Okay. Grants, any of the state or federal monies? I mean, anything we have to do there that are still outstanding?
No, we're all set. All of our applications for the grants have all been completed and they've all been approved.
Okay. Any other questions on the financials? No. Okay. Can I have a motion?
I got it. Move that the Weston Board of Education approve the fourth fiscal year 22 financial update.
Have a second?
I second.
Oh, go ahead, Sharon.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sharon. All in favor?
Hi, Taffy.
Hi, Sharon.
I'm Melissa.
Hi, Bernadette.
Hi, David.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Tony. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. We have some old business. We have a second read of a policy. I don't know, Lisa or Melissa, who's going to take this one?
I believe Melissa.
Yeah, I'm happy to take it. If you recall, we discussed this at our last board meeting during the first read, and it is attached to the agenda. You can take a look at it. It's only 2 pages long. It's basically just some changes to the graduation requirements, mainly to incorporate the change of a mastery-based assessment that is now required for graduation. And in Weston, we've talked about the portrait of the graduate. That's what we're doing to meet that requirement. I do believe, and Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, and there were also some changes to the math and science requirements for graduation in terms of how we quantify what level the students are taking. But you can see that for yourself in the policy. And happy to have a discussion, but otherwise I haven't received any public comment regarding the policy, so I would recommend a motion to approve it at this point.
Okay, can I have a motion?
I'll take it. A motion to approve policy regulation 6146, graduation requirements.
Can I have a second?
I second.
Thanks, Bernie. All in favor?
Hi, Taffy.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Bernadette.
Hi, David.
Peter.
Hi, Tony. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, let's go to the 22-23 Weston Public School calendar proposal. I think we have to get this one off our plate this evening. Lisa, do you?
Sure. Yes, thank you very much. So if you recall back in, I believe it was in the spring, perhaps it was in May, there was a proposal, I'll call that proposal number 1, that was put forth for the Board of Education. And at that time, there was a feeling that they wanted to pause in the actual vote to approve that calendar for 22-23 to see basically, I think, what state we were going to be looking towards, as well as what the other school districts in our area were going to do specifically around February break. So we put a pause, and I went back to the calendar committee as well as certain stakeholder groups to ask for their feedback, because there was a second proposal that mirrored many of our Durgay counterparts, and that was to have a full February week. The surrounding districts are. So there's the calendars are here, as well as some very specific feedback that was gathered from different stakeholders for consideration by the board, ranging from the PTOs who in their board discussions of their organizations, they favored the February break. With regards to our union, the AFSCME, which is the uncertified staff, were also in favor of February break. The WTA had a general consensus around the original proposal, which was a long weekend in February. And the WTA, there were a majority were in favor of the break, but there were some members that were neutral with no clear preference. So in looking at the 2 proposals, I think that it's time for you to vote on which one you would like. One thing I want to mention is that through the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents, or CAPS, they are continuing to petition at the level in Hartford regarding snow days, that for not this year, but the following year, that remote learning, if it is possible to take place on a snow day, be counted toward and not, taken away from the overall. But if you look at both proposals, they both do end on the 15th and 16th of June, respectively. And you can see that the break that we are talking about is adding it onto the full week of President's Day. So it's actually putting in an extra 2 days. So it would be, the Monday encompassing the 2 weekends. So I guess I would invite you to comment or discuss.
So Lisa, make it simple, right? So we, proposal 1 is you start on a Thursday, right? In August,
yes.
right? You start on a Thursday, which is, the first, I guess, the 1st of September, right?
That's correct.
And then the February break is you have the Thursday, Friday before President's Day and President's Day, right?
Correct. That's
correct. And then you end at the same on the same day.
Correct.
Proposal number 2 is you start on a Tuesday, which is
August 30th.
Right? You start on a Tuesday.
That's
but
correct.
Then you get the full week, the 20th to the 24th, which adds
Correct.
2 days. That's the 2 day those are the 2 days that you're shifting, right?
Exactly.
Starting on a Tuesday instead of a Thursday, but then you're giving a full week from the 20th to the 24th, and you're ending on the same day. So the question is really, it's really a question of, do you want that full week break? And what you're giving up is you're starting on the Tuesday instead of a Thursday, right?
That's correct.
And then It sounds like when you did your little survey here amongst the staff, it was mixed.
That's correct.
But the PTO thought that having the February break was they thought that was a good idea.
The PTO, I hear the PTO and the staff thought it was a great idea.
The PTO and some of the staff.
Okay.
Some of the staff.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Probably two out of the three unions thought it was a decent idea. One was ambivalent.
Well, I would say one of the three, and the other two were leaning more towards the long weekend or ambivalent.
Yeah.
And same thing with the PTOs. It looks like 3 of the 4 were in favor of the full week, and then middle being mixed.
Yeah,
that's correct. It was mixed.
Yeah, I would defer
How do you
to
want
some.
to? How do you want to do this, Tony?
Well, I would love to get your views as board members, especially those board members who have children in school, right? And
I'll take it.
But
I was going to say two things. Just looking at the numbers from this, the PTOs, I quickly broke it down. It looks like there were 7 groups of people that were asked. 5 of the 7 were in full support of full week. 1 was against and 1 was indifferent. That was sort of my takeaway.
Mhm.
And then I was going to ask Lisa, I know that we generally take our kids out of school for the week. It's what we feel best for our family to get away. Do you have any sense of, generally speaking, what enrollment or attendance rather is like during that week?
I will tell you at the high school level, if you're involved in winter sports, you do not go away. I think that as far as the lower grades, I don't really have a sense. I think that the students that are in the lower grades, it's easier to take a child out in a lower elementary, quite frankly, than it is as the child is in, whether it's middle school or high school. That being said, the other thing that you might want to consider is there has been so much talk about stress and the idea of family time and all of that. So that I would be remiss if I didn't point that out, that it appears that there are families that want that, whether they're traveling or not.
And I believe the Durgay schools all have February breaks.
That is correct. They do. Now, some people might say, no, leave it alone. If we're traveling, we'll get better, reservations because it's an off week. But most of them are. We haven't had a February break in quite a few years. So it's important to note that. But there has been a movement within our DIRG to have a February break.
And if we had a February break, then the high school sports would be on break as well. So right? So
No. Whenever there is a child is in a season, like basketball, for example, the kids won't go away. They stay because there's competitions. But that's every season. Same thing in April.
Which is unrelated to whether the vacation is 3 days or 5 days. I mean, there's
exactly.
Okay. So there's no impact really to as far as they're going to stay because they're committed to the sport, whether it's a 3-day weekend or a full week off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm ready. I'm ready to vote. It's up to you.
Yeah, I think, I would, listen, my recommendation is to do the February break. It sounds like on the margin, it's there's more yeses for a February break than no's. And I think, Lisa, what would your recommendation be?
My recommendation would be to do the February break, and let's see how it goes. This year, but we haven't done it in a while. And given the sense of the importance of family time, and that our families are looking for it, and many of the other schools are doing it, there's not that big of you're not going any later. I would try it.
Yeah.
I also think, Tony, that in light of the really difficult year year and a half we've had, where people have been at home, and there's an opportunity for them to take a meaningful trip with their children in February away for the first time in a while, even if it's, 500 miles away or an airplane ride. I think this is important.
Okay. So
I also want to throw something in here too. The February break, I really have always enjoyed the long weekend portion of the February break because of exactly what Lisa said. And that's primarily, I'm a ski family, so we go skiing, and we're there before the crowds. However, That being said, February break is one of those times where families can get away and do something, and it's not tied to any sort of like a family obligation. So, for the September holidays or for Christmas, there's a family obligation that goes with that. And so sometimes that restricts whether or not your family can actually go anywhere. So having a full February break actually, I think is, it's a nice break for the kids. I think it's been very stressful, and I personally think that they would all benefit from a full week.
Okay.
So
So if there's no real, doesn't sound like there's any real objections here. So let's have a motion to go with proposal 2.
I don't have the language, so.
I do.
have
I got it.
Right.
Move to approve proposal number 2 of the 2022-2023 Weston Public School District calendar.
Can I have a second?
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye, Sharon.
Hi, Taffy.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Bernadette.
Hi, David.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Tony. All opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations. Finally got this done.
So that's going to be for next year, correct?
Yeah, I
That's-
wish we could can't we just squeak it in for this year? Like,
Wouldn't it be great?
February? Yeah.
Nope. Okay.
Ask for permission or
Nope.
ask for forgiveness.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to be watching you, David Felton. You better be around that week. Kidding.
Superintendent update. Lisa, this is yours.
Thank you, Tony. So first, I would like to talk a little bit about the a COVID update. Today was our first day of pool testing at the elementary schools in 6th grade at the middle school, and we had 60 students at Hurlbut, 80 students at West, and 21 6th graders got tested this morning through the partnership, the Connecticut partnership with Quest Labs. This is free. It's offered by the state. People are under no obligation to participate, but we did want to make it available to our families, and it's a relatively quick process. If you would like to at any point, if a family decides, my kid is now fully vaccinated, I don't need this, all the family has to do is email, and the school nurse will take your name off the roster. It's a pretty easy process. Same way the other way they can add on. I'm pleased to announce that we are also, and this will be sent out tomorrow, we are able, in conjunction with Griffin Hospital, to offer a vaccine clinic on our campus for children's age 5 to 11. That will be from 4 to 6 p.m. at the intermediate school. The first dose is for Monday, November 22nd, and then the second is on Monday, December 13th. We will send out a link, and my assistant Jody Saketa designed a Google form where families can register. You must register in order to participate in the clinic, but we're happy that we're able to do that and start that before Thanksgiving. Also, I would like to add that, we were very pleased to be able to offer the option of in-person parent conferences at our elementary schools for the month of November. And we will be looking, as we look forward after Thanksgiving, to make a few other changes to sort of get a little bit, things a little bit more normal. For example, at the intermediate school in Hurlbut, being able to put down more carpets and small rugs for the children to sit on, to be able to move the student desks more in clusters. We're looking forward to that, always keeping that 3 feet in mind. And also moving towards opening up more one-on-one parent meetings across the district. But there will be more on that after Thanksgiving. So that is our COVID update. I don't know if anybody has any questions. The other item I have under the superintendent update is an update on the middle school and high school survey that was talked about at the last board meeting. And this is in partnership with ADAP. And I would ask Mr. Doak, who has been instrumental in doing this work, to give us a very brief overview of the components of the survey that we as a school district decided upon, and that it will be administered. Mr. Doak?
Yeah, thank you very much, Lisa. So I would also like to thank Matt Phillip, the assistant principal at the high school, and Sonia Stack, a former board member. She works with ADAP, the local prevention council here in Weston. They were both also very instrumental in bringing forward this survey. And ADAP, in fact, is providing the funds for the survey. So an email went out to the families of 7th through 12th graders on November 5th, explaining the survey. The survey will be administered this Wednesday. It asks students to respond to questions in a variety of different modules. It focuses obviously on relationships with their teachers and other staff members in the school. It asks them also questions about their perceptions of their own social emotional competencies, their attitudes towards schoolwork and academics, their perceptions of school climate and involvement in school activities, as well as their use of and attitudes towards alcohol, drugs, vape products, and cigarettes. So far it's been very well received. I know that I've had a few families reach out to take advantage of the opportunity to review the survey questions. And everyone who has seen the survey, even if they had hesitations at first, once they see the questions, they see the benefit of having these answers. Just to give you just a brief flavor, some of the questions, for example, ask, my teachers challenge me to try things that are difficult for me. And students are asked to respond on a scale of that's a little bit like my teacher, somewhat like my teacher, mostly like my teachers, or extremely like my teachers. There's questions about asking students, I have healthy ways of managing stress. Is that a little bit like me, all the way to extremely like me? One of the questions asks, my relationships with my teachers motivate me to keep me showing up here. And then there's some questions, like I said, about drugs and alcohol use, and student motivation to do well in school and to participate in student life in the school.
Thank you, Dan. And it should be noted that, once we get the results of the survey, we will come and do a brief presentation at the board. And then and when we look at these results, then it's sort of like, and then what? So we have to look very carefully at the feedback. And then we look to craft some action steps that would address any areas that we perceive are opportunities to enhance our students' experience at Weston Middle and Weston High School.
How similar is this to past surveys that we've done?
It's not, for example, the specific survey about the climate survey that we did.
It's not like that, right?
Well, there's certain aspects that are like that. We were very careful, and Dan and Matt Phillip, Ken Craw, and myself and Tracy Edwards looked at the different modules to see really what we were wanting to get at. There are very similar questions. For example, I look at it as the survey that we did on drugs and alcohol several years ago, similar questions to that, correct, Dan? I see him shaking his head, so.
Yes, Lisa, in 2017, we had a similar survey with similar modules, questions around academics and drug and alcohol, very similar to that in 2017.
Right. So what is this specifically getting at? Like what dimension of student health is this kind of getting at that we're gonna learn something about?
I think the broad topics are, and please feel free to jump in, Dan, is there drug, it talks about drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
And that's specifically, as you know, ADAP is linked to that. It
Right.
talks about their academics and how they're challenged and their relationships to their teachers. And then it also talks about their connection within the school and their stress level within the school. Dan, I don't know if you wish to add anything to that.
The only thing I would add is that when you talk about the drug and alcohols part of it, it also asks them not only to self-report their own use, but also how wrong they think their parents would feel if they engaged in certain behaviors around drugs, alcohol, vaping, and tobacco, what they think their peers' response would be in terms of how wrong they would feel it would be, as well as their perception of risk attached to those different behaviors. But again, that's one portion of the survey. The rest of it gets at, like I said, their attitudes towards academics and their agency towards making a difference in their own academic life, how the relationships with the adults in the building supports them or doesn't in school.
Yep. Okay. Are we going to do a climate survey?
I think what I would like very much to do is take another look at that comprehensive climate survey that we did. I think we have to see the timing of everything.
Okay.
Tony, let's get through this one, look at the data and how it relates to our goals.
But well, I'm not implying that we should or shouldn't. I just wanted to bring it up.
I think it would be
what we're going to be doing.
Sure, I think it might be beneficial to do it next year, a year out, to then compare, do that exact same one that we did that we found very useful. The name escapes me, but it's through the National Survey Institute or something on climate, National School Climate.
What are we doing? Just post COVID kind of reentry. The social emotional health aspects, the climate aspects of just the data on how things are going on reentry. How are we kind of keeping, what dimension of data collection, if you will, it doesn't have to be quantitative in that respect, but how are we kind of collecting our data or assessing how the students are doing in this year, which is going to be a critical reentry year post-COVID?
I will begin to answer, and if anyone else in the admin team wishes to jump in, there are many different data points you can look at. You can look at attendance, for example. You can look at disciplinary referrals, for example. You can look at the number of, individual counseling sessions, group counseling, all of that. The other thing, though, I think is important is just sometimes you just get a certain feeling about the tenor in a building and how we might need to change some things within the building to provide students with maybe to relieve their stress, make some adjustments on things like that. Not to put Ms. Gavoni on the spot, but I know there were a couple of things done at the high school just recently where they changed they modified the schedule in response to sort of giving students a little bit more breathing time, if you will. Julie, can you elaborate on that, please?
Sure, and I think to answer your question, Tony, yes, there are concrete data points that we collect and that we can look at, but I think there's also an anecdotal piece here. And I know at the high school we have been trying to, in every way that we can and in every opportunity that we can, speak directly with students. So having focus group kind of conversations, going into classes. Meredith mentioned that the counselors have been into health classes for the sophomores and English classes for the freshmen, really getting out there and hearing from them. And one of the things that I heard in the focus groups that I had primarily with sophomores was about, we're constantly scheduled. We're scheduled from, the moment we wake up essentially until we go to sleep at whatever time that is. Some of them, actually most of them probably later than they should, right? So we don't have any downtime in our day, and even just a little bit of unscheduled time would be really helpful. And from that came this notion of the wellness break that we have worked into our schedule, which is 10 unscheduled minutes during the day. And you know, we're embarking on our second week here, and so far it's going well, and kids have responded really well. And overwhelmingly, I think kids have responded well in the fact that it seems like someone's listening, right? Oh, hey, Miss Cavoni came to my chemistry class and we talked about how we needed a break, and now there's a schedule change, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
in the ways
huge.
that we
That's
can,
huge.
in the ways
Yeah.
that we can be flexible and respond to what they're saying they need, I think it's helpful, but it starts with getting out there and hearing directly from them. I think often we hear from parents, which is helpful from an administrator's perspective, but it's different from what you might hear directly from a student.
Sure.
So yes, to look at the data, to look at the data points, but also to remember the anecdotal data piece is sometimes
Yeah.
equally, if not more important.
And I think the study periods that at the high school now, you know, the times that they have where they can do quiet study allows for them to have more unstructured time at home as well. You know, that's like, there's just a real, you know, we can see how they're doing when they get home if they have free time, not if they're
Yeah.
completely scheduled.
You know, whether it's anecdotal or data driven, I think as we get to the kind of home stretch of this year, that's going to be some of the conversations, which is what did we see, you know, young learners, you know, all the way up to high schoolers. And I think it's an important conversation to have, because I don't think, you know, we went through a big shock to the system. It's going to be interesting to see what we saw as a result of it and what we did about it. And so this is a conversation, probably not for now, because it's kind of maybe too early to tell, but it's certainly a conversation as we head into the latter part of the year about, you know, what really did we, you know, what was the real impact of COVID on our students, on all of our students, and what did we do as a result of it? Did we do anything different, or are students so resilient that they kind of bounce back pretty quickly? I don't know. I mean, obviously it's highly dependent on the student, but it's a conversation that I think is going to be important to have as we go, you know, as we get through this year, right?
I agree. I also want to say, I know that for pre-COVID, our students were feeling really stressed and really scheduled. And, you know, I mean, that's part of it's high school, but part of it's also the frenzy that we as a society have worked these kids into, as far as like, you know, focusing on getting into the right colleges and all these things. And it just, you know, the amount of homework that was given, you know, that was seen as whether that was viewed by many as whether or not it was a rigorous curriculum for the students, et cetera. And I think that there was pushback that was happening just prior to COVID coming in. So I think that we have an opportunity now to reshape the way that we are scheduling these kids and working with them as far as what their academic responsibilities are outside of the classroom. And I think that we need to be cognizant of what they were experiencing pre-COVID to make sure that as we start to assemble what their post-COVID academics are going to look like, that we're taking that into consideration. I mean, we're given, this is really a once in a lifetime opportunity. As horrible as COVID has been, it's also been very beneficial in that it's caused pretty much everything and every aspect of our lives to be put on hold and on pause. And it caused a lot of people, it gave a lot of people the opportunity to reflect and to see, you know, we can see it in the professional world right now, what percentage of people are being required to report to the office because they found that there were benefits for work-life balance that they weren't getting before. So I think that we as a board and, you know, working with the administrators need to be aware of that as we move forward. I think just going back to what we had before, the normal that we had before may not necessarily be the right thing to do. You know, Julianne, what you said you did as far as like putting in the 10 minutes of unstructured time, 10 minutes seems so silly, but it's just the thought that they're being listened to. And it's the thought that they can just be for 10 minutes. That is really important. And I think that, yeah, I applaud you for doing that. And I think that there are going to be a lot of other things that we need to, a lot of other areas that we need to address with the students going forward to make sure that it's a healthy environment for them academically and mentally. So good job.
I wanted to just go back to the survey for a moment, because some of the feedback that I received was, why can't this survey be sent to the parents of the children who are taking it?
I could respond a little bit and feel free anyone else to jump in. In the past, whenever we've done these surveys, I it's sort of anecdotally remember people saying that, we want the students to answer the questions in a way that it's like the first time they've seen the survey. And to be honest in that, I think that if there is discussion, I don't know if there would be extensive discussion about the questions and the survey prior to the survey at home, it might it might not be as accurate a representation of just how they respond when they see the survey. I think that there is a great value afterwards for people to talk about the survey and some of the specific questions, but we, for example, are not even allowed to really discuss all of the details of the survey when we give out the survey, because it's written in such a way that they want the kids to just sort of read it and react, whether it be on a Likert scale or yes, no, whatever.
And be shared. David, were you talking about it being shared ever? Meaning like even after the kids have taken it for the parents to see the questions, or?
I thought you meant prior, David. Is that what you meant?
I mean,
I might have been answering it wrong.
No, but I agree with you, Lisa. I don't think they should be swayed in their answers, but maybe afterwards or.
Yeah, I think that philosophically, perhaps I'm of a different mindset. I think that when in the climate that we're in, raising kids and just the general national climate, I think that, I got a fair amount of feedback that it doesn't look good. It doesn't look right that a survey is being administered and the parents don't have a copy of the survey. And I think my question might be, or my statement might be more along the lines of, you have to weigh the pros and the cons. And I could potentially be persuaded that releasing the survey ahead of time would potentially put a situation in place where the parents go to the kids and say, hey, these questions are on the survey and what's your take on it? And it may skew the results as far as the kids answering honestly, but you have to weigh that potential with the question of whether or not parents have a right to see the survey before being administered. And perhaps there's a way to meet in the middle, which would be to release the questions with the answers after.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. I think that there's value to that, especially when we're going over the results. I think we're going to have to point to certain responses and how people responded. So, we can certainly do that as part of the presentation, if you will, on the results. That's perfectly fine. I believe we've done that in the past, and
So
I just want to add that all parents who received the communication from the middle school and high school have had the opportunity to review the survey questions prior to administration. We have had, as Dan said, we have had parents in who have reviewed the questions. I believe there's also an issue of proprietary information here with distributing the complete set of questions. Dan may have more information on that.
Thank you, Julie. I did think of that.
External organization.
I was just going to say, I do know that when we were provided the link to the survey, we were asked not to do mass distributions of the survey, but they knew we had to make it available, and that they were fine with us making it available for parents.
I think that when we share the report out, I do remember getting somewhat specific, and we can certainly find out how specific we can get. I know in the past when we did the survey on drugs and alcohol, one of the biggest takeaways, and it was reminding me when you spoke, Dan, was that parents were very surprised to know that their opinion mattered to their child, and that was the result. So the last time we did the drug survey, it'll be interesting this time, that oftentimes parents were under the impression that maybe their kids weren't really listening to them, but in fact that they were, and that they did hold in high regard what the parents felt about the use of these substances.
So will you get back to the board?
Yes.
On what I'd like to see is,
sure.
There's two things. I'd like to just get verification that the company that created the survey has asked that it not be disseminated. And I just want to put an asterisk next to that. It's not about disseminating it globally or to all K through 12. I'm asking that it be sent to the parents of the children who will be taking the survey before taking it. And then the second follow-up question that I would have is whether or not the schools will release the questions with the answers for the complete survey rather than only certain questions. I'd like to see the complete, the result, the question and the results on the aggregate,
I think that in order to really get the most out of a survey like this, my personal view on this is that I think the parents should get a copy of the questions after, though, because I do think that I would question the results of the survey if everyone got a copy, parents got a copy of the questions, because what's going to happen is parents will talk to other parents, or kids will, I don't think the results will be very meaningful if you actually disseminate the questions beforehand. But I do agree that with the results, the community needs to have the results and the questions with them, right?
Sure, we'll follow up on that.
Yeah, that's one person's opinion.
Well, that's two persons' opinions, because
Right.
you and I are of the same opinion.
Yeah,
It appears at the moment anyway. But no, I agree with you. Like I said, I could be persuaded on the why you wouldn't send the survey out ahead of time, because it could skew the results. Parents had an opportunity to review the survey, so you kind of look at how to get an accurate response, or fair or unbiased response. It seems like by doing what the district has done thus far, and then putting the bow on the top by releasing the questions along with the responses, that would be a complete.
Yeah, because we do, correct me if I'm wrong, but whenever we do a survey, we do really review responses to questions, right?
Yes, we do.
It's public information. We go through the questions and the responses. Right?
Yep.
And if parents don't want their child to participate in the survey, are they able to not have their child participate? So do they have to opt in for the survey, or do they have to opt out?
Opt out.
Okay. All right. And
Yeah, just real
there is
briefly,
an
Dan.
email that's sent to them letting them know that their child will be a part of the survey, correct? Okay.
How many parents did opt out?
Less at the middle school. It's at this point, because several have opted back in after reviewing, or 3, I should say. I think we're down to about less than a handful of students in 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah, and in full disclosure, I was one of those parents, and Dan was wonderful. I asked him not to treat me any different than any other parent. I reviewed the questionnaire, and you did an excellent job, Dan, and I really appreciate it. And I know that all the parents get stellar service from you. It was very good.
Dan, it's amazing. Can I ask a question? And just a question, David. As a parent, what was your main concern about your child participating in the survey?
Twofold, one or threefold. At his age, I didn't know what the questions were, so I wanted to make sure that I know my son the best. And are the questions age appropriate and maturity appropriate for my son? That was my first and biggest concern. And the second one was just trying to understand what is it that the district is trying to determine before my son participates in a survey. What's the data that is they're looking to collect?
Gotcha.
So
Oh, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, Sharon, if you don't finish. Okay, I just had a question also about the results. I know we have this, the ADAP is administering it. Do we get a copy of the raw data, or are we only going to get a copy of the report that tells us what percentage of students answered each question versus, you know, the kind of analytics we could do in-house if we actually had the complete data set?
I was just going to jump in if nobody else is.
Yeah, I was
is
waiting
not-
for you to.
I'm sorry, ADAP is not administering it. They provided the funding for it. But we will be getting the results back from the Search Institute. And I frankly, I'm not sure exactly what format that's going to look like. So I just can't answer that right now without more information.
Okay, I just think it's an important question because if we look at the breakdown of how we answer each individual question, that's a pretty straightforward piece. But even if the answers are randomized with a student ID, we could see consistency. Well, this student who answered this way on this question is also answering that way on this question and this question and that question. And even if we don't know exactly who the student is, we could start to get a feel of a more rich profile. And if it's our data, it'd be nice if we had access to what we're giving out.
Well, in the past, what we've been able to do, what I think is really important, is to be able to look at the data through a variety of lenses or subgroups. And that's really what we have found is most helpful. So it's my expectation we'll be able to do that. Okay. Shall we move on to the next item under my report?
Yep.
Thank you. At this time, I would invite the administrators to leave so that they can, if you'd like to stay, you're welcome to, but it's been a couple of hours and perhaps you'd like to go check your emails and do the other things that you need to do to prepare for your day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Okay, now we're on the enrollment update. The enrollment update really is pretty straightforward. What we are doing is looking at building enrollment and monitoring it pretty much on a weekly basis. And the purpose of doing that is just to make sure we have a solid understanding of any kinds of enrollments, dips in enrollments at any grade level. So you can see, on the chart, the building enrollment as of last Friday, we actually gained 2 students. Under the in-district total, and in the preschool total, we also gained another 2 students for an overall gain of 4. Dr. Pesco, do you want to talk about our plans with regards to the enrollment reports that are forthcoming?
So SLR, which is, I guess I'll reiterate this. Malone and McBroom is not doing the enrollment projections anymore, but Mike Zuba, who did the enrollment projections for Malone and McBroom, is working for SLR, who is actually doing the no, I'm sorry, it's not SLR.
SLAM.
SLAM was doing the enrollment projections. Malone and McBroom was merged with SLR. They're not doing it anymore. SLAM is doing it. Mike Zuber is working for them. And so he wasn't available really to go through the results this evening. So we're going to have a special meeting actually to go through. We'll try to do it in the next couple of weeks, Lisa.
That's
but
correct.
What we want to do is get SLAM, Mike Zuba, and NESDEC maybe on the same night and have them both do the enrollment projections, kind of just go through SLAMs and then go through NESDEC. And so Lisa's gonna try to find a date where we can actually get both of them. And we'll just have to have a special meeting. I'd like to get it done before the December meeting because it actually is an important component that goes into the budgeting, especially the staffing levels for the lower schools. So hopefully we'll get that done in the next few weeks.
Yes, we're optimistic. Mr. Cross is helping arrange that date. So more to follow. And then we have the budget update. Tony, did you, the budget, we've been working through the budget as an administrative team, spending time looking very carefully at staffing requests, a variety of issues. Tony, did you want to talk about the meeting we had with the town?
Yes, okay. So as part of the upcoming budget, the question everyone always asks, is there any way we can share resources with town, right? I mean, that's the obvious question, is sharing services, right? And so, people talk about sharing with other districts, but before we do that, let's figure out how we can actually share between district and town. So we had Melissa and I, Lisa, Phil had a meeting with Samantha, our first select woman, and the town manager, Jonathan Louise, to start talking about things and things that we can potentially look at to share. HR functions, finance functions, technology. And so we're in the process of, and I'm not sure how much we're going to be able to do that's going to impact the upcoming budget, but I think the next step is to come up with a list of things to maybe work on between the town and the district in terms of potential areas of collaboration that will end up creating some efficiencies, right? And there's some obvious areas that we should be looking at. So this was the first meeting. We're going to come back with sort of creating a list and maybe work through a couple of things. Maybe we can get some of this stuff that will impact the budget next year. Maybe not, I don't know, but it was a good first meeting, and I think we have to continue pushing on this because there's certainly areas in which we can actually share, and it's a question that's come up, the community always asks. There has to be ways in which you can share resources, right? And so whether we can or we can't, we certainly need to have that discussion. And if it ends up in a dead end, it ends up in a dead end, but I think we have to push on some things. So that's kind of it. It's still, it's a start. It was a good start. Now we have to get more tangible about things. And I think this will be an appropriate topic for facilities and finance in the coming couple of months.
Thank you. I believe we're on committee reports now.
Yep. Anything from the committee chairs? No. I have one thing I want to bring up as chair of the finance committee. Well, no, chair of the facilities committee. Actually, I'm not chair of the finance committee. I'm a member of the finance committee, but as chair of the facilities committee and overall chair, I want to bring up the potential of merging facilities and finance into a committee called Finance, Facilities, and Operations, right? I have a feeling we're going to have very much the same members on both. I think the agenda, I think the agendas on both of these meetings are a little light right now. Maybe they won't always be, but I think for efficiency's sake, if we created one committee that tackled all of facilities, finance, and operations, I think that might be more efficient. And even if we have to go a little longer once a month, better than having two meetings. Any thoughts on that?
I think it's a great idea, Tony.
I think so too. Yeah.
I think you've got, they naturally relate to each other. And I think you spend a lot, I was on facilities for a brief period. And I think if you're not on finance and you can't attend that meeting, there's a lot of catch up time that takes place because they are so interwoven. So it's, maintaining the same people on the committee for all topics will be more efficient, and anybody that wants to attend can attend as well.
Does it make for do you have too many people on there though if you merge all of those meetings?
No, you have to still only have three, yeah, this is the way it will do is we'll still have 3 board members and probably very much, I have a feeling it'll be very similar in terms of the makeup. So we'll still have 3 board members.
Yeah.
Phil will still be the administrative rep because he is on both of them anyway.
Yeah,
So I don't,
that makes sense. And that way that's just, you're not siloing that work. That's for sure.
yeah, I think so. I ran it by Phil. I think he thinks
I think it makes sense.
any opportunity to eliminate a meeting is always good with Phil. And yeah, I think it might work. Now, Melissa, is there, does it need a board vote? I don't know what the, we have to go to the rule books here.
Yeah, I don't know offhand.
So we'll take this, as long as the consensus is there to do it, we have to go to the arcane committee and board rules to figure out what the rules are around eliminating, merging, renaming committees, which I should have done ahead of this meeting, but I didn't think of it.
Do you want to vote? Do you want to vote now in advance of that so that you can move ahead if you can? Like, in other words, do you want to get the unanimous support for that here so that you can move ahead in the coming month?
Okay, so I think I'm going to need a motion. Okay, I'm going to need a motion to add an agenda item to discuss and possible vote on merging facilities and finance committees.
I'll make a motion that we add an agenda item to discuss and have a possible vote on consolidating the finance and facility committees.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Taffy.
Hi, Bernadette.
David.
Hi, Peter.
Okay. Hi, Tony. All right, so now we've discussed it and everyone seems to think that it's a good idea. So I need a motion to delegate the authority to the chairman to actually work out the details of merging the Finance and Facilities Committee.
I make a motion to delegate to the chairman the ability to work out the details for combining the Finance and Facilities committees.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Hi,
Hi,
Sharon.
Taffy. Hi, Taffy.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Bernadette.
Hi, David.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Tony. All opposed? Okay. And then I'll work out the details, and I'm also going to speaking to Melissa about committee assignments this week, and then we'll figure it all out. I think it's a record for us, 2.5 hours. Anything else? The Cave Convention last week, anything exciting come out of that?
Yeah, Lisa and I were both at the convention. It was great to see the other superintendents and to network with the other Board of Ed members. The big theme of the convention was civility and conversation and student voice, and it carried through all of the sessions. So we've got lots of good information to bring back.
Great. All right. Thank you. I think with that, the next session is on next monthly meeting is on December 15th. Before that, we'll probably have a special meeting to talk about the enrollment projections. There's nothing else. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Can I have a second?
I second.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Great meeting tonight. See you soon.